Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to give it a few seconds while participants are joining, and then we'll get started with this year's technical assistance webinar for the animal health production and animal products priority area in AFRI. Looks like the number's not changing anymore, so I'm going to get going. So I'm Tim Sullivan, and it is a pleasure to have you all with us to talk about the programs in AHPAP supported under AFRI. Next slide, please, Sierra. So this meeting is recorded and it will be posted for those who were unable to attend but want to have received the information after the presentation and the question session is done. We will have time for questions at the end. But if you would like to, as we're going, you can put questions in the chat box and we will either answer them in the chat or at the end, once we've done the presentation part, we will answer them orally for everyone as we go. And as I said, the slides and the recording of this are going to be posted on NIFA's website. So Sam, to your question before, since we haven't actually gotten going yet, so we're only covering programs that are under animal health production and animal products. So the novel foods program that you reference is not one that we will cover in this technical assistance webinar. The hope by the end of all of this is really for you all, for those of you who are considering submitting to any of the program or priority areas in AHPAP, to understand who the contacts are if you're considering applying to one of the specific programs, and to have the high level information, what's required, what types of grants can be submitted, and which MPLs and program specialists comprise those teams so that you can ask direct questions. Every program is a little different. We emphasize different things, so it's always good to reach out directly to the team that works in that priority area. Next slide, please, Sierra. So this is the non-discrimination statement that USDA requires that we go through in any public forum. So these statements are the USDA's official statements relating to non-discrimination. I'm going to leave it up for a minute so that people can review them. There, in the third bullet, is information on if you would like to file a complaint for any reason. If you feel at any time like any discrimination took place, that is a resource through the Office of Civil Rights to file a complaint, into which will usually start an investigation of whatever happened to occur. All right, thank you. Next slide, please, Sierra. So the organization of the session today, we're going to talk a little bit first about NIFA. We're going to go through the programs in AHPAP. We'll talk a little bit about the RFA. And at the end, a little bit of information. We'll cover the review process and any additional information that might be necessary for people who may be applying to AFRI for the first time. Next slide, please, Sierra. All right, so now we're going to get into the overview of NIFA. Next slide, please. So NIFA, we are part of the REE mission area. We are the USDA's extramural funding arm, the premier funder of agricultural research in the nation. So we invest and support initiatives and programs that ensure the long-term success, viability, sustainability of agriculture. Today, we're talking specifically about animal agriculture because this is the animal health and production and animal products technical webinar. So we provide funding and also strategic leadership for programs that develop innovative science related to U.S. agriculture, with the hope of improving the lives of agricultural communities, from producers all the way through consumers. Next slide, please, Sierra. So these are the breadth of topics that are covered by all of NIFA's programs. And I'm not going to read them all, they're up here, but it really runs the gamut of all of U.S. agriculture and all of the things that are impacted by innovations in agriculture. Next slide, please, Sierra. So specifically today, we're going to be talking about the aspects of AHPAP that are in the foundational and applied sciences. So the foundational and applied science RFA is 1/3 of AFRI, the Agriculture and Food Research Initiative. And this is the RFA that specifically focuses on single and multi-investigator research, and in some cases, research and education or research and extension projects. This link, the top link, is a link to the AFRI Foundational and Applied Sciences page. So that's where you can access the RFA. It is a long document, and we're only going to be talking again about one section of it. The other links that you should know, the frequently asked questions link, that provides a lot of background information, especially for people who are new to AFRI or, are looking for a refresher about specific points. It includes information about which documents are required versus recommended. And I think at that same page, you can access the supplemental materials. So there's templates for the current and pending research, the CLI lists, and the additional information, Part 4C, which is an important resource for composing the application itself. All of those are important things to look at and to go through before you compose one of these applications. As we go through each program, you'll notice that many of them have the same submission date, but there is some variability. There's a lot more variability when we move outside of AHPAP and look between the Farm Bill areas. Next slide, please, Sierra. So at this point, we are going to go through individual programs in AHPAP, starting with animal reproduction. And I'm going to turn it over now to Camilla Grant, who is one of the MPLs for the reproduction program, and she's going to go through some of the program-specific information about that.
Thank you, Tim. Good afternoon, everyone. As Tim stated, I'm Camilla Grant, and I'm going to provide you with a brief overview of the Animal Reproduction Program 81211. The program staff consists of myself and Dr. Mark Mirando as co-leads, as well as our program specialist, Sierra Casetas, as well as Pushpa Kathir. Next slide, please. The purpose and priorities for this program can be found on RFA page number 32. The funding priorities for this program include cellular, molecular, genomic, genetic, or whole animal aspects of animal reproduction and efforts to improve reproductive efficiency or enhance reproductive management, especially while focusing on gonadal function, which would include production, function, and preservation of gametes, as well as the hypothalamic pituitary gonadal axis, embryonic and fetal development, which would include interaction between the conceptus as well as its uterine environment, as well as the microbiome of the reproductive tract. Next slide, please. The project types and grant types for this particular program can be found on RFA pages number 31 through 32. The area by area code is 81211, and the proposed budget request can move up to $650,000 for each individual project for a duration of 3 to 5 years. The project types that can be submitted to this program are research projects only, and the grant types that will be awarded include standard, conference, and phase, which would include your strengthening, standard, your new investigator, strengthening conference, seed, equipment, and or sabbatical grants only. As a reminder, the application deadline for this program is August 10th at 5 p.m. Eastern. And should you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to contact myself, Dr. Mirando, or any one of the program staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Camilla. I'm Steve Smith, and Sierra, can I have the next slide, please? This is my team for the Animal Nutrition Growth and Lactation Program. Our program code is A1231. Mark Mirando and I are co-leads of the program and collaborate closely with Terry Radke and Sierra Casetas as our program specialists. Next slide, please. The priorities for this program are really quite broad and intentionally so. We want to invite research applications to investigate cellular, molecular, genomic, genetic, or whole animal aspects of nutrition, growth, and lactation, especially those focusing on nutrient utilization and efficiency, including the influence and impact of the gastrointestinal microbiome and or mitigation of enteric methane and other greenhouse gases, innovative approaches to feed formulation or the use of novel alternative feedstuffs, especially those that may contribute to reducing emissions of methane and other greenhouse gases. Next, please. Continuing on, these can focus also on improving the quality and efficiency of producing meat, milk, eggs, and animal fiber, as well as the metabolic disorders and nutritional deficiencies affecting production. So as you can see, those are quite broad. But I want to draw particular attention to the fact that these priorities do embrace maternal nutritional treatments that have effect on growth and lactation of the offspring. But sometimes that one falls into a gray area. It's not gray at all. These come to this program, as well as the pre-harvest treatments that have an effect on post-harvest characteristics. So, you think like meat science, for instance, this is specifically inviting those projects that have pre-harvest treatments with post-harvest effects should come here. Now, if they're exclusively post-harvest, they should go to programs within our Institute of Food Safety and Nutrition. Next, please. Much like Camila said, of course, reiterating the program code for this program is A1231, but we invite applications requesting up to $650,000 for project periods up to 5 years for standard awards, seed grants for up to $300,000 for 2 years, and $50,000 for conference and equipment grants. Again, these are research projects only and include grant types of standard applications, conference awards, and phase applications, strengthening standard, new investigator standard, strengthening conference, seed, equipment, sabbatical grants only. And all of these under the phase category, with the exception of the new investigator standard, do require those that be submitted from a strengthening eligible entity. And those are clearly defined in the RFA. And there's a handy flow chart toward the end of the RFA that can help you determine whether you are in fact eligible or not. Once again, the application deadline deliberately is August 10th, so that if projects get misdirected, we have the opportunity to switch them back and forth between our programs so that they land and get reviewed by the most appropriate panel. And should you have any further questions and need to contact us, you can contact me or Dr. Mirando, and we'll address your questions. Thank you very much.
Hello again, everyone. Now I'm going to give you a brief overview of the Welfare of Agricultural Animals program, also known as A1251. Next slide, please. The program staff here again are myself and Dr. Mirando, as well as program specialist Rakia Salter. Sometimes we have persons who inquire about the animal welfare program, and there may be some confusion in regards to animal health, so hopefully we can provide some additional clarity for you today. The RFA of this program can be found on page 35, and the funding priorities include evaluation of current production practices or development of new management approaches to safeguard animal welfare and adaptation to climate change, which would also include objective measures of animal welfare, including use of emerging methods and metrics for assessment for outcome-based welfare, alternatives or improvements for pain management, euthanasia, and/or slaughter, handling and transportation to decrease injury and distress, which would also include thermal stress, understanding the effect of the microbiome on animal welfare, selection for robustness, behavior, and/or social effects, including those that may be impacted by climate change, such as thermal stress, and lastly, innovative alertness to replace or reduce the use of animals in research. Next slide, please. The project and grant types for this program include the priority code of A1251, and the proposed budget requests vary. For individual projects ranging from 3 to 5 years, the budget request can be up to $650,000. And for partnership grants that are 3 to 5 years can be up to $800,000. The project types accepted for this program are research or integrated projects only. And the grant types to be awarded or applied for are standard, conference, and phase, which includes strengthening standard, new investigator, strengthening conference, seed, equipment, and sabbatical grants only. Again, the same deadline of August 10th at 5 p.m. Eastern. And again, those contacts, should you have any questions or concerns, are myself or Dr. Miranda or any other program staff. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Angelica Van Gore, and I'm going to give the program overview for the Animal Breeding, Genetics, and Genomics program A1201. Next slide, please. So in addition to myself on this program, there's Dr. Sullivan as another NPL, Terry Radke, and Jennifer Stratman as the program specialist. Next slide. So the purpose and priorities, this can be found in the RFA on pages 39 through 41. So funding priorities for up to $650,000 for standard grants include novel quantitative genetic methods, including selection theory and modeling, implementing selection methods, etc., development of national and regional breeding strategies to address biotic and abiotic stresses, genetic diversity, germplasm storage and characterization, crossbreeding, or genome modification. Next slide. In addition, there's the development of new phenotypes for improving selection criteria and/or development of high throughput methods for on-farm recording of traits, exploring alternatives to control inbreeding, exploit crossbreeding, conduct selection experiments, or develop novel breeding programs aimed at improving performance, welfare, or health of agricultural animals. Projects with specific types of partnerships, including small and mid-sized or minority-serving degree-granting institutions not on the list of most successful institutions, EPSCoR institutions or international partners can request up to an additional $150,000 as specified in the key information table. Next slide. In addition to the $650,000 standard grants, we have funding priorities for up to $800,000 for standard blueprint grants. So animal genomics research priorities over the next decade were identified from stakeholder inputs and were compiled in the report Genome to Phenome, Improving Animal Health, Production, and Well-Being, a new USDA blueprint for animal genome research from 2018 to 2027. And that was published in Frontiers in Genetics. So proposals that align with the animal genome blueprint goals are highly welcome to submit to this program area or other program areas within the RFA based on the best alignment with the program area priority goals. Any target area identified in the USDA Animal Genome Blueprint that aligns with the program area priorities listed are eligible to be considered for funding. Next slide. We also have new this year funding priorities for $650,000 per year for 5 years for a research coordination network grant. So this is the Animal Breeding Research Coordination Network that build and coordinate public-private research and development efforts for major food animal species. So more information is found in the RFA, but these applications must address priorities listed for this program within the RFA, as well as provide evidence for synergy, contribution, continuity, and management. Next slide. Project and grant types can be found on page 39 in the RFA. So again, the program area priority code is A1201. The budget requests are $650,000, $800,000 for partnerships for 3 to 5 years, $800,000 for 4 to 5 years for projects addressing the USDA Animal Genome Blueprint, and $650,000 per year for 5 years for RCN projects. The project types include research projects only, and the grant types solicited in this program include standard, conference, and phase, which is the strengthening standard, new investigator, strengthening conference, seed, equipment, and sabbatical grants only. Same application deadline as those previously noted, August 10, 2023 by 5 p.m. Eastern. And if you have more questions, please contact myself, Dr. Sullivan, or the program staff. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Kathy Bjork, and I will cover the Diseases of Agricultural Animals program overview. That's A1221. Next slide, please. So there are 4 of us on the A1221 team. Tim Sullivan is a national program leader, as well as myself. And Sierra Cassettis and Rakia Salter are the 2 program specialists associated with us. Next slide, please. The purpose and priorities for A1221 can be found on the RFA on page number 37. They are the cellular, molecular, genomic, and genetic or whole animal aspects of animal health and disease, with the emphasis on maintaining healthy agricultural animals. We also cover maintenance of homeostasis, including innate immune responses. We also cover disease prevention and control, including vaccines, reverse vaccinology, breeding for resistance, management and diagnostics. And we note that this is for endemic diseases only. Diseases that are not endemic, we request proposals through a different program in biosecurity. Therapeutic interventions for disease, including alternatives to antibiotics and minor use animal drugs. The development of publicly accessible, reasonably priced immunologic reagents for ruminants, swine, equine, aquaculture, or poultry. And new this year, the establishment of a tribal animal health coordination network focused on building a community on tribal animal health issues and creating comprehensive direction for research. Next slide, please. So the project and grant types for A1221 are in the RFA on pages 36 to 37. The proposed budget requests can go up to $650,000 per project for 3 to 5 years. And like other programs, we do have a partnership for an extra $150,000. So those would be up to $800,000 for 3 to 5 years. The project types are research projects only, and the grant types are standard, conference, and phase, which includes strengthening standard, new investigator, strengthening conference, seed, equipment, and sabbatical grants only. Like the other programs, the application deadline is August 10th of 23 at 5 p.m. Eastern, and you can contact either Tim Sullivan or myself for further information. Next slide, please.
All right, so I think I might have introduced myself in the beginning, but again, I'm Tim Sullivan, and I'm going to briefly cover the Ecology and Evolution of Infectious Disease program. This is the team for that program, myself and Pushpa Kathir, who is the program specialist. Next slide, please. So the EEID program is funded through AFRI. However, this is an interagency program, and the lead agency is the National Science Foundation. So NSF puts out the RFA and receives the applications. Both USDA NIFA and the National Institute of Health are involved in the RFA and do support projects out of that competitive program. So as we go through, if you're interested in applying to EEID, it's good if you're going to be submitting an agriculturally relevant problem, whether it's plants or animals, to connect with me, and I will also make connection for you with the program officers at NSF. Now that I've said that, the program itself funds questions related to ecological, evolutionary, and social drivers that influence transmission dynamics of infectious diseases. So the big part of this program is the kind of the fundamental piece is that the questions that are addressed have to have either a quantitative or a computational understanding. So that either means mathematical models or phylogenetic type models that would provide information relating to either the evolution of disease or the way in which diseases are transmitted or other aspects of the ecology of those infectious diseases. The program is very broad, so we cover zoonotic, environmentally borne, vector-borne, or enteric pathogens of terrestrial or aquatic systems and animals. We support diseases of animals and plants, and the specific pathogens can be very focused on a single pathogen, or it can be very broad, looking at an entire system of bacteria or viruses. But really, everything that has to go on has to be grounded in that quantitative or computational understanding of whatever it is you're asking about that system itself. Next slide, please, Sierra. So as I said, this is an interagency program. So the U.S. institutions that are involved are NSF, NIH, and USDA NIFA. We have 3 international partners that participate as well. So BBSRC or UKRI in England, United Kingdom, the U.S.-Israel Binational Science Foundation, and the National Science Foundation of China are all international participants in the EEID program. The proposed budget requests, NSF allows for requests of up to $3 million for a period of 3 to 5 years. USDA NIFA, our typical budget for awards in this program in a given year is $5 million. So in general, we support typically 2 projects at a request of $2.5 million per fiscal year. The project types that are supported in this program are research only. The grant types are standard grants, and they follow the NSF organizational structure. So that is different than the organizational structure outlined for other AFRI submissions. The application deadline is usually the 15th of November. I am the contact for NIFA, and my email is there, and there are 2 contacts at NSF, Katarina Dittmar and Sam Shiner. And here we have the link to EEID on the NSF website, because that will that houses the RFA for each year's participation in the program. Next slide, please. So I'm also doing this program as well, so I'll just jump right in. We're going to talk, so we're moving from 4 programs, which were reproduction and growth and diseases. EEID is an interagency program, and now we're into cross-cutting programs. So what a cross-cutting program, what that means is this is a program that multiple divisions within NIFA may participate in. And for agricultural biosecurity, plant health and animal AHPAP are both participants. So this is the team for A1181 agricultural biosecurity. Michelle Colby, who could not be here today, is the primary NPL for the Animal Systems Division. I am the backup to Michelle. Amr Fayed is in the Division of Plant Systems Protection, and he represents the plant side as an NPL. Jesse Ostrander and Sierra Casetas are both program specialists that support the program, one on the plant side, one on the animal side. Next slide, please, Sierra. So this program focuses on increasing the national capacity to prevent, detect, or respond to biological threats to U.S. agriculture and the food supply. So topics that increase agricultural biosecurity at regional or national levels or cross the boundary between public and private are all things that would be under the umbrella of this cross-cutting program. There's no, the program covers both diseases and pests of plants and diseases and pests of animals. Typically, those are things that are either emerging, re-emerging, or transboundary in nature. So for people who are engaged in animal work, if your project is primarily focused on the development of a vaccine, say, if it's a vaccine for a disease that is endemic in the United States at present, it's more likely that that idea should go to diseases of agricultural animals. But if you're developing a disease platform that is focused on rapid response to diseases that are not yet in the United States, then you may have a good chance in this program, agricultural biosecurity. So next slide, please, Sierra. So any project that's submitted to Ag Biosecurity has to address one or more of the following. So the first point is detection, diagnostics, surveillance, or forecasting of transboundary, emerging or re-emerging diseases and pests associated with animal production, or transboundary, emerging, re-emerging, or invasive diseases, insects, or weeds associated with plant production. Any kind of non-traditional detection will be considered in this program as it relates to agricultural biosecurity. The second bullet is really beyond the detection, but really looking at how we would respond to or recover from those same types of pests and diseases within plant and animal production in the United States. Next slide, please, Sierra. This program this year is soliciting or in applications for an agricultural biosecurity coordination network. The idea being a 3 to 5 year proposal and a work plan that includes engagement and integration, including new and existing agricultural biosecurity projects, programs, and networks, coordinating an annual agricultural biosecurity symposium that formalizes a coordination structure for the broader ag biosecurity community, developing a way to facilitate more effective communication among the many groups that are engaged in agricultural biosecurity. How do we identify, joint priorities across agencies and in different regions, those kinds of questions. Next slide, please, Sierra. So this is the project and grant types for the A1181 program. This is an integrated program. So a standard grant with one function. So a standard research project can request up to $650,000 for a period of 3 to 5 years. What that means is if you plan on submitting a 2-year project, it's unlikely that you should be requesting the full amount, the full $650,000. But for a project between 3 and 5 years, the maximum budget request would be the $650,000. If you are engaging in an integrated project, so an integrated being either research and extension or research and education or research, extension, and education, you can request up to $1 million for 3 to 5 years. This program also allows for partnerships, those being collaborations with HSI institutions in EPSCoR states, MSIs, 1890s, 1994s, or international partners. Any of those collaborations, you may be able to request an additional $150,000. Now, the caveat there is, and it is for any of these programs that include these partnerships, the extra funds have to go to the partnering eligible institution. What we don't want to see are houses of cards where there's collaborations, but the partnering eligible institution isn't really receiving funds. We want to see these as fully developed partnerships because that's what these funds are meant to encourage. Grant types, standard grants, conference grants, all of the phase of, strengthening standard, new investigator, conference, seed, equipment, and sabbatical grants are allowed into this program. The application deadline is also August 10th. And if you have questions, I suggest you reach out to Homer and Michelle. You can include me as well if you want. But they are taking the lead in addressing concerns for submissions that are coming up this year. Next slide, please.
Hello,
This-
Angelica Van Gore again. I will give the program overview for another one of our cross-cutting programs, Interdisciplinary Engagement in Animal Systems, A1261. Next slide, please. So leading this program is myself, Giomi Zamora, and Rikia Salter as our program specialist. Next slide. So purpose and priorities, we have three main priorities in this program. The first is precision animal management, focused on precision feeding, breeding, management, and animal health to ensure and enhance economic viability. Environmental synergies of animal production, managing emissions, recycling, reusing co-products of animal agriculture, optimizing animal management for environmental health, and the societal aspects of animal welfare. So building trust around animal agriculture, consumer experiences that influence perceptions of agriculture, animal well-being, public engagement in the policy and practices of animal agriculture for improved animal welfare. Next slide. Project and grant types. Again, the program area priority code is A1261. Proposed budget request is for $1 million total per project. There is new this year, requests up to 1.15 million with specific partnerships for 3 to 5 years. Project types, this is an integrated project only, so the projects must include research and extension or education. Grant types are standard, conference, phase, and strengthening standard, new investigator, strengthening conference, seed, equipment, and sabbatical grants only. And the application deadline for this program is October 5th, 2023 at 5 p.m. Eastern time. So if you have additional questions, please contact myself and Dr. Zamora. Next slide.
All right, hello, everybody. I will be talking about the Critical Agricultural Research and Extension Program. Again, this is another cross-cutting program here at NIFA. And so I am the program specialist for this program, and we also have two national program leaders, James Dobrowolski, who is an NPL in the Institute of Bioenergy, Natural Resources, and Environment. And then also is Vijay Nandula. He is an IFPS in the plant production division. All right, so the purpose and priorities for this program are to focus on a clear, time-sensitive, stakeholder-identified need or problem for agriculture. These projects want to make sure to explain the magnitude of the problem and the rationale for targeting it. Next is to describe a meaningful approach for blending research and extension expertise. To provide evidence that the project is aligned to priorities that both research and extension can address. These projects need to state expected solutions or improvements and how these will be assessed and measured. Next, these projects want to address the potential cost of a proposed solution and describe how it can be scaled to be sustainable in the short term and the long term. And lastly, these projects will explain how the project will strengthen agricultural and food production systems. So the priority code is A1701. The budget request for these is $300,000 for up to 3 years. And as I've said, these are integrated, and this is research and extension projects only. There is no education components within this program. And the grant types are standard and then phase, which includes strengthening standard and new investigator grants only. The application deadline is Thursday, September 14th, 2023. And next, I'll pass it back to Angelica.
Thank you. I will be giving the program overview for another cross-cutting program, Data Science for Food and Agriculture, A1541. Next slide. So Ann Stapleton is the primary national program leader on this program. Next slide. Purpose and priorities can be found in the RFA on page 91. So the funding priorities focus on intersections between data science and artificial intelligence, or AI, and agricultural areas to enable systems and communities to effectively utilize data, improve resource management, and integrate new technologies and approaches to further U.S. food and agricultural enterprises. Applications for research and integrated research projects must address one of the 6 AFRI priority areas. We especially welcome proposals in the areas of climate, smart agriculture and forestry, food and nutrition security, environmental sustainability, economic revitalization, and justice. Projects that focus on intersections between one or more of these areas are also welcome. The most competitive proposals will be equally grounded in agriculture and food sciences and in the data science. In addition, competitive proposals will clearly communicate the relevance and novelty of the proposed research in both areas. Next slide. The program area priority code is A1541. Proposed budget requests up to $650,000 total per project for project periods of 3 to 5 years. For coordination innovation networks, priority only $1 million total per project for project periods up to 5 years. And coordination innovation networks on climate or food supply modeling projects are up to $3 million. Each type has partnership opportunities. Project types include research projects only or integrated, meaning research, education, and/or extension projects only. Grant types include standard, conference, and phase grants, and requested grant types for coordination networks include standard and phase grants only. The application deadline for this program is November 16th, 2023 at 5 p.m. Eastern, and please contact Ann with any questions. Next slide. Thank you.
Okay, so the next portion of this presentation, we will be going through just some application details and giving you all the links to the different resources that we have on our website so you can easily access them. So to start off, the key components of your application are the project summary or abstract, the project narrative, the bibliography, the data management plan, and there are other documents that are required depending on the program, and these can all be found in the application guide or within the RFA. So to dig a little deeper into this, the project narrative is not to exceed 18 pages for standard proposals. Seed proposals are not to exceed 7 pages. This will be strictly enforced. We would like single spacing, 12-point font, and this includes your text, figures, and tables. So an important note is applications exceeding the page limitation will be returned without review. Next is the data management plan that is required for each application. Investigators must provide detailed, and this is up to 2 pages, business and management plans that include expected data type, data format, data storage and preservation, data sharing, protection, and public access, and then the roles and responsibilities. There's a page that explains all of this in more detail on our website, and the link is listed here. All right, moving into the application submission. NIFA only accepts electronic submission of applications. The application guide gives a deep dive into how to apply, what's needed, and everything you need to know. So please visit this, and the link is listed here. Application documents must be in PDF format, and they will not be accepted by NIFA if they are not in PDF format. All right, so moving to the proposal evaluation process. And this is just a brief overview of the process to give everyone an idea of what this looks like. So at first, proposals are assigned for review to at least 3 reviewers with expertise in the proposed topic. Then reviewers will produce individual reviews, and they have evaluation criteria to go off of to evaluate the strengths and weaknesses of each proposal. Then these written reviews are used to begin panel discussions with other reviewers serving on the panel. And through these discussions, peer review panelists come to consensus on the final rating and ranking of each proposal. So to continue with the evaluation criteria, you can find all this information on our website as well for you to read and review. But the written evaluations entails 2 levels of assessment. The first is the reviewer summarizes how well the application addresses each evaluation criterion. And then after the application has been assessed for strengths and weaknesses, the reviewer evaluates the overall likelihood that the project will have sufficient or significant outcome and impact. Written reviews are used to begin panel discussions, as I've said before, and that is how we start to get that final rating and ranking of the proposals. So these detailed instructions and explanation of the evaluation criteria can be found in the AFRI review criteria PDF. Next is the timeline of competitive programs. So the whole process takes about 3 to 5 months to complete from the time that the proposals are submitted. So 1 to 2 months for the release of the RFA, proposal writing and planning, and then when those proposals are actually due. 2 to 3 months for the peer review panel to meet and to be organized. And then 1 to 2 months for the awards to be finalized, then actually awarded. So we try to keep you all updated as best we can, and we appreciate your patience as we go through this process. So here is some additional information for you all to look at previous awards that were funded and to dig deeper into some of the RFAs, the evaluation criteria, et cetera. So we use CRIS to find funded awards, previous awards and awards that were just awarded maybe even last year. So here's a screenshot of this homepage. Next, we like to highlight the events calendar where you can find all upcoming events for NIFA, and everything will be posted there and how to access those events. Then there is a RFA release calendar where our comms, our communications staff lists when those RFAs are coming out, so you can all be aware of those. And here is a list of all of the links you will need to get everything you need to know about NIFA. All right, at this time, we would like to take all questions, and if you could please enter those in the Q&A box. And I will go there now. And
Sierra, before we do that, I have
Yes.
that last slide reminded me of something. So if there are people in the room who are new to NIFA and new to the process, one of the ways, if you're not going to submit this year, maybe you're going to wait a year. One of the ways to learn about how NIFA goes through this process, how we select awards, what things are involved in the review criteria, how the discussions work, is to volunteer to serve on a panel. So you can go to PRS. If you Google NIFA PRS, a webpage will come up. You can volunteer on there by putting in your information, what you're an expert in, or if you know that your expertise matches one of the programs that we've talked about today, and you have interest in learning more about it, you can email the team and say, I'm interested in being a panelist. And we will provide your information to the panel manager who makes those decisions about the people that they think are best to recruit. So volunteering and serving on a panel is a really great opportunity. not only to understand how the process works, but to improve your chances of writing a successful proposal, because you're going to see what things work, what things don't, what arguments are strong, what kind of proposals that are, how to compose the right kind of proposal that resonates well with a panel, all of those kind of things you can learn by volunteering. That helps NIFA and it helps you as well. So I would be remiss if I didn't take this opportunity to say that to everyone.
That's perfect. And I did drop that link to PRS in the chat. So you all can go in there and fill out the volunteer panelist recruitment form. And
Should we start answering questions live? I'll answer. I mean, we got one in the chat box about small businesses. So AFRI has a broad mandate. Not-for-profit companies and for-profit companies can apply for funds in AFRI. So you are allowed to apply to AFRI in the foundational and applied science. The only part of AFRI, as far as I understand it, that for-profit companies are not allowed to be the primary applicant of is a SAS submission. They have different requirements relating to the primary applicant. It has to be a university, a few other types of applicants. But for this foundational and applied science, you can come in as an individual or for-profit company, small business, but you should know that you're going to be competing against people from large land grant universities. There is another program that specifically supports the small businesses, the Small Business Innovative Research Program or the Small Business Tech Transfer Research Program that NIFA operates, has a priority area, 8.3, animal health production and animal products, that supports animal agriculture. And there's 8.7, aquaculture, which supports small businesses engaged in aquaculture. The submissions are a little different. The process is a little different. If you want to know about SBIR, you can email me. I manage the aquaculture program. So that's an answer to that question. Steve, you have your hand up. Maybe
Yes.
I got something wrong.
Great answer, Tim. The only thing I would offer in way of clarification is the restrictions on eligibility are for integrated projects. So yes, all of those for the Sustainable Ag Systems Program, that's the only project type we allow. So
Yeah.
that one is limited to colleges and universities. But we do have some other integrated programs. I think the IDEAS program being one of them as an example that we talked about today, that also would have that limited eligibility. But that's just for the first movement of money, the host institution. A non-eligible entity can serve as a collaborator, even a co-PD. Well, they can't serve as a co-PD, but they can certainly serve as a collaborator and receive a subaward within those applications. So that's just the minor clarification I would offer.
Thank you, Steve.
All right, we have another question in the Q&A box that says, does running internal lab experiments to improve our efficiency of cultured meat production qualify as research?
I mean, that sounds like the kind of research that we see in phase 1 SBIR. I don't know that that's going to rise to the level, the scientific merit that would be fundable under these AFRI programs, but that's totally within the realm of things we see in the SBIR program. That would be my answer to that question.
I'm sorry, I missed that question and I'm not finding it.
Sierra marked it as answer. Do you want me to read it, Steve?
Yeah, I can read it too, either way.
It said, Steve, it says, does running internal lab experiments to improve our efficiency of cultured meat production qualify as research? This is from a small business applicant.
Very good. The only thing I would add to that is in a broader sense, if the research was more fundamental in nature, it would be essentially muscle biology, and then that would be welcome in the A1231 program. But if it's just focused on the business side of it and improving efficiency of the business, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, so even if it's if the outcome relates to muscle biology, then it could go to nutrition. But even if it's just about culturing meat, would it still, like, if that's the outcome to make a cultured meat, is that going to fall within A1231? I guess is that a question that you could answer, Steve?
It certainly could. We do have some examples of them coming into SAS and other programs. It really depends on how it's structured and how it aligns with the program priorities. But as I indicated earlier, the program priorities for A1231 are deliberately broad. So it wouldn't necessarily preemptively exclude, cellular meats, but it would still need to be responsive to that call. So it's, I guess, as with any topic, it's a qualified, you're welcome.
Thank you, Steve.
Are there any other questions that you all have?
Wow.
All right. Oh, now they're coming in.
Oh, good.
Okay. Okay. So the next one is, are there grants that support technology like IoT sensors that monitor things that would support healthy growth of meats, pork and chicken? There's also data analytics associated with this. This might just have to be a email. If you would like, we can share the email for this and you guys can have a meeting.
I can speak for the data analytics side of things. So that data science for food and ag systems cross-cutting program, A1541, that is led by Ann Stapleton, really focuses on the data science side of things. And so I think if that is your main focus, that would be the best program for that type of research call. If you're actually developing the sensors, perhaps that would be a better fit for the agricultural engineering AFRI program.
Give it a few more seconds. If there's any last questions that we can answer for you. Okay, so next question is, do seed grants and full grants come from the same funds, or are seed grants given their own designated pot?
Do you want me to answer that, or somebody
This
else want to
goes
answer it?
to, yeah, anybody can jump
All right.
in.
So each of the program areas, priority areas that we talked about, has their own dedicated program funds. Those funds go to support both standard submissions, strengthening standard submissions, and the two types of seed grants, the new investigator seed grants and the strengthening seed grants. So they all make up or are pieces of the same pie. The primary difference is the standard submissions, because they are longer, because they have a longer duration. Seed grant is up to 2 years, but a standard grant is 3 to 5. And they have very different budgets. Seed awards can be up to $300,000. A standard submission is up to $650. If you have a partnership, maybe $800. When they are reviewed, they're reviewed in the same panel, but they are ranked in terms of their rank order. Seed grants are ranked on what we call board separate from standard grants. So they're all funded from the same pie, but they will be reviewed differently from the standard submission. So you're not going to be competing against someone who submitted an 18-page proposal if you submit a 7-page seed award. That's my very general answer to your question. Go ahead, Steve. I'm sure you have.
You might want to clarify the subtle difference between a strengthening seed and a new investigator seed, because there is a set aside for strengthening awards.
Yes, so I can do that. So that I mentioned two types of seed awards. New investigator seed awards are for individuals that meet the qualifications that NIFA has set for a new investigator. There's a lot of criteria, but the main one is that you are within 5 years of the start of your terminal track, or tenure track position. You don't necessarily have to be tenured. By that, we mean the ability to submit your own grant. And also, you have not received any other federal award to date. So if you meet those two qualifications, you may be able to submit as a new investigator seed. Strengthening seed are seed grants that are meant to support phase applicants from phase eligible institutions. So the idea there is that those funds allow those applicants to generate the preliminary data necessary to come in and then receive a standard award. I think that's good enough.
And
Leave it at
a
that.
percentage of our funds do have, for AFRI, do have to be expended on strengthening eligible entities. So it's, I think the total is like 15%. Some of that's captured by the fellowship programs. The balance, which is roughly 12% in each of our programs, is needed to be applied to those strengthening eligible entities.
Thank you, Steve. Looks like Pushpa is typing a response to Lataro.
Yeah, Tim,
So-
I want,
Yeah, so when you're a new investigator, if you receive you can use, it's really your decision whether you want to submit as a new investigator standard submission or a new investigator seed submission. If you feel like you have enough preliminary data to justify the rigor and request of submitting a standard grant, then you should do that. But if you don't feel like you have enough data at present, then it would behoove you to try for a seed award, especially if it's your first time through, because you may, I mean, it may be, you may be in a position, I mean, seed grants, you don't need as much preliminary data. If you don't have a lot, then it makes more sense to try for that rather than to go into a standard submission, knowing full well that you don't have enough preliminary data to be competitive. So, but at the end of the day, the choice is yours.
yeah, and Tim, if I can, along those same lines with the new investigators, just to answer this live as well as the answer in the Q&A box. But so the qualifications for new investigators are that you are in the beginning of your career track position. You do not have extensive scientific publication record, and you have less than 5 years of postgraduate career track experience. Sorry. So to answer your question about if it'll improve your chances if you have a tenured professor on the grant application, other MPLs feel free to jump in on this, but they're going to, at the end of the day, the panel is going to look at the team as a whole. If that team is more than capable of doing the research, then that's fantastic. I don't think they're really going to look at if you have a tenured professor on that application or not. And then another new investigator question, can a new investigator be an individual or small business?
As long as you're applying for a program for which you are eligible, so most of the AFRIC programs, would fall under that umbrella. Whether you are or are not affiliated with a land-grant university or some other college or university, you would be eligible to apply. The question you need to answer is, do you have the resources to conduct the kind of research that would make you competitive? But that's a very different question, and many organizations do. So I would not let that discourage you unless you know for a fact that you have challenges in that area. But then there's also the SBIR programs that are tailored for those types of situations as well. So be persistent in looking for those opportunities.
And
So you can email me about SBIR, but you're only gonna really deal with me if it's got a shell or it swims. If it's about another type of animal production, then you likely will want to email Robert Smith, who is an NPL who deals specifically with SBIR 8.3, which is animal health production and animal products. I do aquaculture, but I can direct you to him and I can be the gatekeeper. I have no problem doing that. But if you want to go directly to the source for terrestrial animals, it's Robert Smith.
don't want to cut anybody off, but is there any last questions? All right, seeing none, I think on behalf of everybody, thank you so much for being here. And I'm actually going to pass it to our division director, Bob Godfrey, to say a few words, but thank you.
Thank you, Sierra, and I want to thank everybody in this Animal Systems Division who participated in this webinar today and put in a lot of hard work getting this set up. I want to appreciate all the attendees that came to listen, ask questions, and learn about our programs, and we really appreciate your interest and look forward to seeing your applications, seeing you volunteer to serve on panels with us, which is another service you can provide for us in the peer review system. So we really appreciate your interest and look forward to your applications. And like all the NPLs have said, if you have any other questions that come up after this webinar is over, feel free to reach out to them. They're a very well-informed group, the NPLs, the program specialists. Everybody knows a lot about the program, so they're more than willing to provide answers. And if they don't know the answers, they know where to send you to get the answers, which is just as good sometimes. So we appreciate your interest. And I want to thank the Animal Systems Division staff for putting on such a well-organized and well-run and very informative webinar. So thank you very much and have a good day.